media. As consumers, we are bombarded by it at every turn, like the Incredible Hulk being bombarded by gamma rays. But what makes some media endure, while others are banished to the forgotten black hole of obscurity, never to be heard from again? Who or what decides this? Hetero life mates Steve and Yahel want to know, and they want to know now. This is Obscurity Now. And what's up, Obscurians? It's time for another episode of Obscurity Now, the show that takes a look at weird and almost forgotten pieces of media, and then we decide if they should be remembered for all of human history or tossed into the black void of obscurity, never to be heard from again. My name is Steve, and I'm one of the hosts, and with me is a man who once cursed a child so hard that she ended up in a coma. It's...
It's Yahel, and I hope you've had your tetanus shot, bitch.
Man, that's such a good line. God. But better than the movie deserved.
And I am not actually worried about Steve's health should he be stabbed by a rusty shard of metal. That is a line from the film we are discussing today, the cinematic experience, the sin experience, if you will. Known as Parole Violators.
Parole Violators. Like, what? Just hearing that title, what does that bring to mind? It sounds like, well, I guess it's supposed to sound like a lame, like, TV cop show, like Cops or something, because that's exactly what it is inside the world of the movie. But
although it's more like a parole violator. Is maybe what this should have been called.
Well, what I love is that that whole premise that they sort of establish at the beginning, like, doesn't come into play at all for like the rest of the movie. It's like there's really no reason.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Exactly. So yeah, wow. Parole Violators. I mean, we're already talking about it, so should we just dive right in?
Yeah. I do want to mention to people right off the top, though, you can find this film free on YouTube. I will post the link here in the chat, and I'm sure Steve will provide it in the places where he provides links.
That would be the show notes section, whether it's...
Thank you, Steve. That's what I was looking for. But it's about an hour and a half or so. And without giving away my verdict on the film, I will say time will both fly by and feel like it's come to a grinding halt. It's
really? Interesting.
Yeah. Just because, and by that I just mean that, like, the action scenes, and there are a lot of action scenes.
It's almost a feature-length action scene. It's amazing.
Like, exactly. I was gonna say the action scenes sometimes feel like they're just going on and on and on. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that, like, these action sequences where, what would you say is like an action scene in an average movie? Like, how long? Like 5 minutes?
Something
tops?
like that.
Few
They
minutes?
just string them together. It's like, when you...
They're like 10 minutes each. I think the finale is like a 15-minute long action scene, basically.
Yeah, it's insane. And I will say one thing. This came to my attention. I think I mentioned before, I hang out in all these sort of like B-movie like Facebook groups and stuff, and that's how I...
Yeah. Just like in real life, Steve, you hang out in the seediest corners available.
I don't know anyone. I know few people IRL, at least out here in LA, that are into this stuff, which is why my podcast co-host is on the East Coast, But anyway, this dude, he writes up like sort of reviews about all these movies and stuff. And so I was reading about it, and especially anything that looks like action from the 80s or 90s, especially if it's direct to video, I'm on it. So I watched it, and I was all like, thought that, maybe we were the first ones to bring this to the internet. Boy, was I wrong. When I was looking for like images and, of course, doing research, I discovered, and I can't believe I completely forgot, Red Letter Media beat us to the punch on one of their episodes.
I had a feeling.
Yeah, it was on one of their episodes, The Best of the Worst, and I completely forgot about it. But hey, that's okay. We're going to give it the Obscurity Now treatment. And I'm sure, because they do like 3 movies in one episode, we're going to go deep. We're going to violate Parole
Yeah, they do
Violators.
like the best of the worst. Yeah, that's what is that what they covered it
Yes,
in one of the
that's
best of the
exactly
worst?
what it
I kind
was.
of figured.
So, are you ready to violate parole violators?
I am ready, Steve. Maybe we shouldn't do this so early in the future.
Violators, mount up.
Welcome to your feature presentation.
It's funny. I think you could probably tell we're like talking at like not our normally like boisterous podcasting level because we both have
Yeah.
people who are still asleep. But
Well, for me, it's more of just having like 5 hours of sleep.
right.
But don't worry, I made this very strong, so I will get going. Oh, I see Stadium Arts, aka Strides, in the chat. Says good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to
Good
you, sir.
morning to you and you and you. There we go.
So, Steve, what is your history with parole violators?
Wow. Well, I mean, I basically already said it. I saw it on Best of the Worst, the Red Letter Media show. Forgot about it. And then a dude wrote up a review about it in one of the seedy B movie chat rooms that I hang out in. And I was like, this sounds like the movie for us. And I mean, I would ask you the same, and you probably never heard of it until I recommended it to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had never heard of it, and I will say, like, it was quite the experience.
Oh, yeah,
You,
yes.
you know, Steve, I know we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I feel like, at least for me to properly discuss this movie, I need to just share my oh my God, I'm so tired. What do we call it, Steve? At
Your
the end, my
history?
verdict.
You're going to share your verdict right now. Okay.
Yeah, I loved this movie.
Hmm.
Uh, and it is insane. The acting, I listen, I can't give you a lot of reasons to watch the movie. I can't give you reasons why I liked it. The acting, terrible. Uh, the action sequences are both amazingly good and
Hmm.
awful. The pacing, non-existent. Uh,
Wait, in the way that it's super fast and not, it's
yeah, it does not
it's
slow
speed
down.
on speed is what it is.
Yeah,
Hmm.
basically. The stunts, I will say, are like really good. Some of these I wouldn't even call stunts. I would just call them people getting hurt.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, my well, all right, we should go through the IMDb and then I'll start talking about my philosophy or not philosophy. It's so early. Oh my god. My
not
hypothesis. That's what I was
cool.
going to say. And yes, everyone, I'm to blame for us doing this show so early. Well, so yeah, just take your hate out on me, whatever. Um, yeah, let's go through the IMDb. Oh yeah, my verdict. Well, see, I knew you would love it because I loved it, and I was like, this is a thing that I just wanted to share with the world. I mean, which is the whole reason why we have this show to begin with. To show people like hidden gems that they missed, from back in the day or whatever. And yeah, this was so awesome. I think it's right up there with Miami Connection and Samurai Cop. Um, and yeah, I mean, basically everything you said, I agree with. The acting is, especially from our leading lady here. I mean, we're gonna get like her acting is so bad that it's good. And if there was like an ironic like Academy Awards, like she would get ironically the best actress of all time.
Yeah. Like, I mean, and there's so many like ridiculous
Mm-hmm.
one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
This movie, a lot of them come from
Mm-hmm.
her. And sometimes like it's her delivery, sometimes it's the actual dialogue. Like when she says the phrase, "I didn't mean to cuss you," like 40 times in about 30-second
Oh, and how
span.
about
It's
my
insane.
baby, my baby. That's my baby. Give me back my baby. Like she says it so like all right, so here's my
This woman says it like she doesn't know what the concept of being a mother is and the kind of emotion that would bring out in someone if their child was in legitimate
yeah.
danger.
So
Uh,
yeah, let's jump in the IMDb. I mean, obviously, we both loved it and I mean, I mean, there's not really too much to spoil because you need to really see this to believe it. I mean, there's like zero story. It's all plot and like zero story. Um,
Yeah, I guess we could maybe, and I know we're kind of going all over the place, but the plot is basically the descriptions that I found is basically like, oh, this guy Miles Long, hilarious name, and I love that the movie makes fun of his
yep.
name and how
Yeah, we'll
stupid
get
it
there.
is. But he used to be a cop, and now he runs a show called Parole
Mm-hmm.
Violators, where there's like footage of guys that got out on
Mm-hmm.
parole but they're committing crimes. They're caught on
That
film.
he filmed with an 80s
Exactly. I was
camcorder
getting to
while wearing like the lamest robber mask you could possibly imagine that barely fits his
That's
face.
the thing too. Like his ski mask thing that he wears to cover his identity when he's like filming these
Hmm.
guys, and it has like a giant hole in the face. It's not like two eyes and a mouth, and there's really a giant hole in the face that shows in full view his eyes, nose, and mouth. So like basically the most he could unlock his iPhone while wearing this
Hmm.
mask. That's how
Yeah.
you know poor of a job it does of covering his
And
face.
the thing that's so funny, okay, so obviously this guy is on TV. He's a TV host, but not once does like someone come up and be like, "Oh my gosh, you're Miles Long from." And it's weird because the TV show is actually called The Parole Violator. It's like they couldn't like make up their mind, I guess. But anyway, no one ever comes up and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're Miles Long." It's like everything that they set up at the beginning is like basically forgotten. It's like all the
Steve, perhaps you forgot that there's a piece of dialogue that where he talks about how the show has been on TV for 16
mm-hmm.
weeks. So it's we're not talking about season 7 of Unsolved Mysteries here. This is a burgeoning show. So Steve, it's
I
explained.
guess, but TV in like, well, I was gonna say the '80s. This actually premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, July 7th, 1994, and back then, being on TV was a big deal because there was no
Yeah.
YouTube or anything to jump on. So even if he was,
No, you're right.
even if he was only on, TV for what did you say, 16 weeks or something?
Yeah, so like 4
Yeah,
months.
and he lives in, California, aka, or to be more specific, San Francisco. Like, I'm sure, there's a lot of people there. They would recognize him. I'm sure someone would.
Well, he is like 3'2", so maybe people just don't even see him.
All right, let's jump into. All right, Yahel pretty much already nailed the synopsis, but I'll just go ahead and read it. TV show host Miles Long trades his camera in for a 9mm handgun when his girlfriend's daughter is kidnapped by a parolee that he put behind bars while on the police force. And this was directed by Patrick G. Donahue, and he is actually the brother of Sean Donahue, who plays Miles Long. They are I guess they both wrote the film together, and yeah, they're I guess they're just look out, Coen brothers, because the Donahues are coming for you.
So, Steve, from my research, I actually read that Patrick Donahue is his dad.
What? Where did you
Yeah,
see?
but his brother is in this movie.
He played JoJo.
'Cause yeah, yeah. There's and I think there was the very first parole violator we see that's like trying to rob the liquor
Hmm.
store. I think like he was related to them too. I can't remember what his deal was, but I mean it was an
Well,
article I
that
found, so I
that
mean I
must
don't
be
I
him
don't
then,
know.
because it makes sense because the first parole violator is really old looking. So if he is indeed the dad, then wow, I've never a father son directing, acting, writing triple threat. I mean, wow, mind blown.
Yeah. Yeah, and because I mean the Patrick Donahue, his first credit is doing. Sorry, I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but he was he has like a credit from
Mm.
1976. So he's an older guy, so I don't think it's his brother
As a director, or is it one of his?
as a
Yeah,
director.
all right. Some of his earlier work is includes Kill Squad. They Call Me Macho Woman, and
A future episode topic,
yeah,
surely.
for sure, and Ground Rules. And And then yeah, like I said, or so so he wrote and directed those movies, and then Sean also wrote some stuff, Ground Rules.
Well, Sean's in that They Call Me Macho Woman. Oh, well, that was 1989, so yeah, it could still be his
Yeah.
son.
And he also wrote a film called Shattered Dreams. I believe that's the Dustin Rhodes biography.
The Goldust.
Yeah, Gold
It's
Dust.
a movie just about that move that Goldust did in the
It's
Attitude
just an
Era.
hour and a half of a guy getting kicked in the crotch over and over again.
Yep.
So the production company here is Bottom Line Studios, which is basically Patrick and Sean's sort of pet project. And yeah, they basically those are the only movies that they made though. Like after that, and I mean, there's like a few things that they released here and there, but yeah, they were most active between like the late '80s and early to mid '90s. So
Yeah, this movie. I'm
no, no,
sorry.
I'm
Go
done.
ahead. Well, I guess I'll start going over the cast here, but I'm not going to go over too many of them for a couple reasons. First of all, this cast is huge.
And most of them, this
Um,
is their
we
only
have
film.
Yeah. Oh, we have Sasquatch in time here. He says, "Howdy, fellas, howdy."
What's up?
So, this movie feels like basically a bunch of stuntmen and women got together.
Oh yeah.
They pooled some resources, some money, and they said, "Hey, let's make a crazy action movie, but we'll also play all the parts." So, I mean, that's one fun thing about it. You don't see any stunt doubles. Like everybody does their own stunts, and everyone's pretty proficient as far as it comes to like throwing kicks and punches. They don't always know how to pick the best shots to make those punches and kicks look like they land. So there's a lot of them where you can clearly see it was whiffed. So, they're definitely stunt people first, actors, producers, cinematographers, second, 10th, and 11th.
All right. So let's go in order as to what is like the most crappy. And I'll say it's got to be all right, the acting and the writing for sure. Um
But it's also two of the most enjoyable things in the
oh,
movie.
100%.
And I mean, it's not good.
Right. And
You're not wrong.
and yeah, but of course in this regard when we're in the so bad it's good category, it works to its benefit. Of course, like
Oh yeah.
and in a way, it's kind of competently made, at least in terms of, cinematography, as you said. I mean, because at least it's never boring, Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's never
there's so
boring.
many movies, like, of this caliber, obviously, like, low budget. And, I mean, clearly, Patrick Donahue, this was not his first film. So there's a lot of, so it's weird. Sometimes like there's some reaction shots that are missing like from the stunts, but then there's other times where you're like, oh my gosh, they thought to do that. Like when you said that the famous line, I hope you got your tetanus shot, bitch. And that's when Terminator Lady, the back of her head, and that's what she's actually called in the credits, Terminator Lady.
Yeah, she came up. She comes up on the Obscuritron here. She's the lady wearing like the workout tank
Yeah, and
top,
the shades. Yeah.
and glasses.
And yeah, so Tracy, who we're going to get to here in a minute, who's the lead female here, she basically beats her up and forces the back of her head on a rusty nail. And they took the time to show the nail like up there before she actually falls on it.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm just like, all right, somebody cares. Somebody knows what they're doing a little bit.
Yeah. I do think that like this movie, like you said, it's strangely competent in a lot of ways. I think the scenes that like come out with like whiffs, or things that just don't look right, or maybe some things are mistimed, probably came down to time and
I'd say
money,
rushed.
and not having either of those.
Right.
You know?
And I mean, and if you look on, I mean, I guess you'll get to him in a minute here. Not Patrick, Sean. If you look on his IMDb, it says like clearly before actor stunts. So I imagine that a lot of these people are probably his friends, and he's like, hey, you want a chance to act, but you also have to be in a lot of fight scenes. And they were like, whatever you say, there, Shawnee, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through this cast real quick. I'm only going to go through a few of them. So we've mentioned Sean P. Donahue. He is the main character. He, like I said earlier, is about 3'2". I mean, no, he's probably like, I would say he's shorter than me. He looks like he's like 5'2",
Yeah,
maybe.
but he makes up for
I
it
would
with
say
his mullet.
yeah, he makes up for his mullet and his amazing wardrobe,
Mhm.
and he has the body of an action star, of like a Sylvester Stallone action
Mhm.
star, the face of an accountant, and
For some reason, he
the
also dresses like an accountant. Actually,
yeah,
he like dresses like my dad on his day off in 1997.
exactly, like he shows up at this like seedy bar,
The yellow
wearing
polo.
very nice yeah, a canary yellow polo with very nice Dockers pair of
Yeah, yeah. I
khakis.
was. It's funny that you mentioned that because I was gonna say, listeners, Yahel, anyone, close your eyes and think of like the perfect action star. Why are they not wearing a canary-colored polo? You know, like,
Yeah. And at first it's like, well, I guess this guy is you might think this guy must be so
mhm.
badass that it doesn't matter what he wears. But honestly, his character, which character's name is Miles
Mm-hmm.
Long.
Not a
That's right,
porn
as in,
star, Miles
you've been
Long.
driving for
Yeah.
Miles Long or something. And I will say the bad guy at one point, the main bad guy's name is Chino. He makes fun of him for his name. And he's like, "Oh, were your parents mad at you or something?"
Yeah.
And then Miles is like, "Maybe they just had a sense of humor."
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the weird things about the script, is that so most of the dialogue is pretty, your typical cavalier action hero stuff. I mean, there's some really weird crap that's thrown in there, but we'll get to that later. And but like it's a weird contradiction in tone because like when you make your villain I mean a edophile like that's
Yes,
so dark, like, and then on top of
yes,
that there's like the way they do their like blood and makeup, like it's so serious. But then like so like
yeah,
Miles and Tracy are like covered in blood and they're sitting there quipping like they're in a Marvel movie. It's like it's so bizarre.
yeah. I think that they started off like trying to make a serious film. I mean, this is what I'm
Mm.
guessing. And at some point in the production, maybe like halfway through, they were like realizing how kind of ridiculous it was, and then they just leaned into it because there's some action scenes that, like, I would say about half the action scenes are treated very
Hmm.
seriously, and even though maybe you can see that like a kick or a punch doesn't land right, they're treated seriously, and they're not like played for comedy. But then you've got like a scene like where the one guy gets like kicked in the balls so hard. There's a scene where the Miles and is fighting these guys inside of a moving
Hmm.
van. And Miles kicks the guy in the balls. So, or
Oh
I'm
no,
sorry,
Tracy
Tracy kicks the guy in the
double
balls.
kicks the guy in the balls and it lifts him through the
Right.
skylight. Yeah.
Yeah, he goes through the roof of the van, basically through the
Anyway, back
skylight.
to that cast.
But yeah, Sean Donahue, you know him from nothing. Uh,
That's not
next we've
true.
got.
He was in that other one that his daddy directed. Which what? Ground Rules.
I
Ground Rules. Yeah, there you go.
I mean, he was, in all honesty, like his most recent stunt credit was in
Hmm.
2012, and he had like a couple every year. So it's not like he wasn't working. It's just like these are films that you've never
Right.
heard of
Right.
whatsoever. I think the only one here that I heard of was The
Hmm.
Box, and I thought, oh, it must be the one, The Box with Cameron
Hmm.
Diaz. No, no, it's some other movie called The Box that you've never heard
Okay.
of.
All right.
Anyways, we have his love interest named Tracy, who is played by Pamela Bosley. Um, she has only this as her acting credit, and I assume that she was going to have like stunt credits because, again, she's fairly competent as far as her fighting scenes go. And she like takes like a lot of
Hmm.
punches. Actually, I think I started talking about it, but then I kind of trailed off. Miles Long, our main character, gets beat up constantly throughout this
So
movie.
awesome.
Like, I will say, like, I appreciate it that they didn't make him like some over the top, nothing can like hurt me. I can kick everybody's ass. And he does have a few scenes where, he like gets the better of like a few group of guys or whatever. But there's also plenty of scenes where like he's outnumbered and he just gets the shit beat out of him. I would say 80% of the time he's losing his fights, slash being left for dead.
All right. So as like sort of flatly acted, both Miles and Tracy are. Yeah, seeing them get beat up like makes you care. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like that's what. Again, that's what they need to learn at Marvel. Stop shoving all these Mary Sues down our throat and, make us care. God, that's all we want to do.
yeah, because you're really waiting for, when are they finally going to, get the better of the bad guys, and to the point where towards the end of the movie, I started thinking that they were gonna like end up getting killed,
Right.
by the bad guys.
They were going to have like a downer ending.
Yeah, I mean, it really seemed like that's what it was leading towards. In fact, I thought like they had killed Tracy two times.
Yeah,
two times. That got me to believe it.
It's true. Yeah.
Patrick Donahue may be a visionary here. Right. But besides that, we've got Chino, played by Ray Garcia. This is his only acting credit. We've got his sort of
right-hand man
number one. Yeah, his right-hand man named Toos. Toos. And that's played by Michael Keel. And then you mentioned Christine Moon, who plays Terminator Woman. She doesn't really have too many lines. There is a really funny character, Inspector Davis.
That's when they decided.
Played by Leeds Landing.
That's when they decided to try to turn it into a comedy.
But here's the thing. Okay, so let me see if you agree with me. Inspector Davis is played up for like he's supposed to be a comedy character, 100%. Right? And he does get legitimate laughs, at least for me.
Sure.
Like
100%.
I'm wondering if Patrick Donahue would have had like a good budget and like a little bit more time, this could have been like a sincerely like top-notch, like actual, like not so bad it's good movie.
Yeah, I mean, they could have at least like gotten it on like Cinemax or something.
Yeah. I do want to point out, and Mike Donahue plays JoJo. We talked about him a little bit. There's two characters whose names just killed me. There's a bouncer in the film whose name is Bouncer. Mm-hmm. He introduces himself as I'm a bouncer. He says, "My name is Bouncer. I'm a bouncer here." And then there's also a goon named Goon.
Oh man, that scene. Well, I think we need to save it for later because that whole scene with Goon is something else.
Yeah, but anyways, that's pretty much the cast. I mean, it doesn't matter. You don't know these people from anywhere. I assume these people, if they were to get together at a reunion, they wouldn't even recognize each other.
Probably. They probably all went back to whatever states they moved to San Francisco from. But
so, Steve, I know, like we're not really planning on going through this movie beat by beat, which would be kind of difficult anyways, just because a lot of it is just action scenes. But I do want to point out that actually a couple of things. One is, I know we've talked about what they've done well from a technical standpoint. One thing that I thought was very bad from a technical standpoint is the audio mixing.
Oh, yeah. The blazing electronic score by Lawrence Arden Buck like drowns out the the very poignant dialogue from time to time.
Yeah. There's quite a few scenes where the dialogue is hard to hear. Good news though, doesn't matter.
when they hit the important lines, you hear them. Because Tracy's screaming them. That's why.
Yeah, and I will say I thought the movie's score was actually pretty good. I found myself really enjoying a lot of these songs.
Oh, me too. I liked it a lot. Although I feel that there maybe weren't enough, and they just sort of used the same ones over and over again, which is to be expected.
There's some recycling.
But did you notice that Lawrence here is a real big fan of like synth brass? It's like constantly going wong like through the entire film, and like he like discovers it like halfway through, and then he starts using it even more like towards the end. Yeah, it's kind of like, remember that old boat noise they used to have in like movie trailers? Wah. Remember?
Yeah, yeah.
Sort of reminded me of that.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I just learned what the instrument that makes that sound is called the other day. It's like this, it's basically like a giant piece of metal, like a thick metal
Hmm.
pipe, and you hit it with like this other cylinder. It's actually pretty cool, but
It is cool.
uh yeah, the music is weird too because this movie came out in 94, but the a lot of it looks like it was shot
Oh,
in the 80s,
totally.
to be honest.
And the fact
From the
that they
sets,
shot this, it looks like
the
they shot it on
clothes.
16 millimeter. So, and of course, the lack of cinematography in general, like, yeah, it definitely gave it an 80s look.
And the music sounds it sounds almost like a little bit like modern synthwave. Not quite,
It sounded like
not quite,
someone's
but it,
discovering his like Yamaha DX7 for the first time, but
okay.
in a good way. In a good way.
It works. It actually
It
works for the movie.
did this movie with that soundtrack remind you of another B movie that also had a pretty good electronic soundtrack that we watched and reviewed?
Oh, the brain. What's it called? I know which one you're thinking of.
No, I don't know about a brain.
Oh,
It's one that you hated.
I don't know. You're gonna
Surf
have to tell me. I'm too
Nazis
tired to.
Must Die.
Ugh, no, please don't insult this film by comparing
Oh
any part
God!
of it
All
to
right,
Surf Nazis.
I can't yell because people are sleeping, so we'll just move on.
Uh, but yeah, the music was
Mm-hmm.
good for the most part, but it does drown out the
Mm-hmm.
audio. And one other thing I wanted to point out from a technical standpoint is there are a few miscues with stunts, but a couple of times when windows are By the way, if you take a shot every time a window gets
Oh,
broken in
there's
this
so
film,
many.
you will be dead
There's a
halfway
lot
into this
of car
movie.
crashes too. I mean, they had
Yeah.
some kind of a budget for this, and they put it all into their
Yeah, it's older
stunts.
cars though getting destroyed. It's like cars from the 70s and 80s. But yeah, they blow up a lot of cars. A lot of car windows get smashed.
Yeah.
A lot of people go through car windows.
Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
I mean, and they do a lot of car hits, where a car hits a person, a human being, and they do some stiff ones, man. Usually, like you run those at your car might be driving like 10 miles an
Mm-hmm.
hour. I mean, there's a couple that I think they were like up to like 20 miles an hour. I mean, some really stiff hits in a lot of
I
these
mean, they
stunts. But
basically
what I was gonna,
open with a car hit almost, like when
yeah,
the video cop Miles Long he chases someone.
he's following a guy that's about to rob a liquor store, and he's like, "Oh, don't do it, don't do it." But he kind of wants him to do it
Mm,
too because then he doesn't have footage for his show.
right,
Uh,
but
So the guy starts robbing the liquor
mm,
store, and yeah, I think like right after, isn't it like right after he catches him, like he gets hit by a
mm-hmm,
car,
mm-hmm, and he just sort of
but he just rolls off the roof.
yep, water off a duck's back.
Miles gets hit by like three or
He
four
does,
cars in this movie.
he does, and he
He
drives a van off a cliff. Like he falls off a cliff. He falls off. He likes showing that he can, roll down hills. I mean, I guess it's all basic.
he doesn't just fall off a cliff, like he gets thrown off this rock face, and he goes through like, and this had to be filmed as like two or three
Right.
separate falls, so that's even
Mm-hmm.
rougher, of him just like falling, clearly like legitimately falling, maybe 10, 20 feet, hitting trees on the way
Mm-hmm.
down. Oh,
It's
man,
pretty
like
awesome. But since we were just talking about basically the opening of the film, like what was your initial thoughts like right after that? I guess it's kind of a cold open.
yeah, so Miles basically goes in and stops the guy mid
Hmm.
robbery. And I thought it was funny because the robber then turns his gun on Miles. He has this giant
And he
shotgun,
beats him
and
up with a
Miles just kind of like,
camcorder.
yeah, he beats him with his camcorder. He gets shot at, but he just kind of dodges the bullet.
Hmm.
And it's like later we see Miles has like an entire arsenal of weapons, but he didn't bring a single gun to this. Uh,
You mentioned the choreography. You get your very first, oh, I don't know, it's more of a no sell than anything else when the robber, he like kidney punches the old man who runs the gas station, and
uh-huh.
he's just like, ow. He does-
Yeah, he's just kind of holding his side. He's like, oh, okay, I'll get you, little
yeah,
buddy.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so Miles stops him, and then I thought it was funny. So Miles, whenever he catches one of these parole violators, he ties them up, ties them to like a post, takes off their
Mhm.
shirt, and on the shirt, on their chest, he writes "Parole
Mhm.
Violator," and he leaves them there for the cops, like Spider-Man would leave like a criminal that he
Now,
catches.
Yahel, do you think it's weird that, old Sean here, aka the video cop, like chose specifically to like target parole violators? I mean, it's bad, but I mean, like, what if you're violating parole just because you were like, it was white collar crime or something like that? Like,
Well, he's clearly going, but he only goes after like violent criminals, and every time that we see him catching a criminal, they're usually doing something, fairly
right,
nefarious.
right, right. I mean, I just don't know how, wide a net the video cop is casting.
Well, I'm sure once he's done going through the bad guys, then he'll like start, going after people who are on parole for, I don't know, stealing a stick of Wrigley's double mint gum or something.
Or even
Uh,
worse, like watching this movie on YouTube. Ooh.
but yeah, it's kind of like weird too how later in the movie we find out that Miles was only a cop for six
Yeah.
months. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then he started doing this. And I don't know if they even ever address like why because it's kind of implied like he got kicked off the
Right,
force or
right.
something, but they never explain exactly what
Hmm.
happened. But yeah, the cold open I thought was awful, like in a fun way.
Hmm.
What did you think about it?
I mean, I was on board. I think because this is
I knew I was in for a treat after the
oh
cold
yeah,
open.
yeah, 100%. And then yeah, you mentioned the how he likes to tie up the parole violators and remove their shirt and then write it in like marker. Like that's so weird. What a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
Um,
And then like again, I know we're not going to go by this beat by beat, but I do think like we have to talk about the next
well,
scene.
we can. Originally I said that we weren't going to, but I ended up taking. I mean, there's just
I took a lot
yeah.
of
All right, so
notes.
whatever. Let's just get into it. Okay, so the very next scene, I believe, is Let's see. I think I went too far ahead.
Chino is like getting out of
Yes.
prison,
Okay. Chino gets released from prison. We get to see him.
and Chino is like, your
Like,
typical Latin gang
am I
member
allowed to
kind of
say
stereotypes of his
cholo?
look.
Like that's. I mean, him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's what he's supposed to be, like some kind of Hispanic or Mexican gang
Right.
member. His name is
Hmm.
Chino. He's got like slick back hair, bandana over like his
He
head, that
must
kind
be
of
from
stuff.
Chino
But
Hills. Um,
maybe, yeah, probably. But the funny thing is, I mean, he's not like in a Hispanic gang because the guy that picks him up is white, and I think most of his gang members are
hmm.
white. So, but the guy that picks him up, Twos, as his name, they have this conversation, and it is like so like WTF this
Oh, I
conversation.
wrote down a lot of dialogue, and one of it is
Do you?
for this. So, I mean, are you talk?
I'll play Twos.
Okay, all right.
So Chino comes out of the prison. Twos is picking him up. Hey, what? Oh wait, you start with how you've
Well,
changed.
yeah, it's like, hey man, I'm a changed man.
What? Do you like guys now?
Nah, man, girls, real little girls.
Yeah, basically that's what he's like. No, little girls, real little girls.
It's funny because like he talks in the same sort of cadence and rhythm with every single line. Like it's so
Yeah,
funny. It's like, yeah, you're right. No, man, girls, real little girls. Like that sort of
let's go get a beer.
yeah, exactly. It's so funny.
He,
And the
Chino throughout this movie, I think there's like three separate occasions where he talks about like how he wants to get a beer, but he never gets a beer.
oh, he's just like Theodore from a Chipmunk Adventure. He never got
Oh,
to eat.
Sasquatch in Time just commented, "Don't clip that." Yeah, that is audio you don't want clipped.
That's right. Uh, so, oh yeah, but the question here, Yahel, is that like, I mean, or that exchange there makes no sense, obviously, because it implies that prison changed him into liking little girls when it's clear that he liked them before he went
Right.
to
And the weird thing
prison.
is like Chino says that he's a changed man now
Hmm.
because like Twos asks him if he wants to like go, I don't know, rob somebody. He
Yeah,
asks him about,
do something
let's go do
bad.
crime.
Yeah.
And Chino is like, no, I'm a changed man now.
Hmm.
And then yeah, we find out that Chino was in prison for like kidnapping and possibly like sexually assaulting like,
Mm-hmm.
young kids or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird because later we see a few scenes that Chino, when he's confronted by Miles, and this is before Chino has done any crimes, any additional crimes. Chino tells him that he's a changed man and he's not planning on doing that, and he seems earnest both
Yeah,
times.
yeah. It's so weird. But let's see. Oh, there's one. Did you notice that? All right. So now we're in Miles's like studio, TV
Office, I
studio.
get. Oh yeah, TV studio. Yeah,
Yeah,
where he's filming his show.
yeah. And he's like, all right. So he finishes and he tells the crew good job or whatever, and then he walks through the halls, and there's a, poster for Kill Squad on the wall. So I think they're in their
Oh,
production, like their actual production studio. Um,
that's funny.
yeah, it's very trauma. But so anyway, yeah, we saw that. Oh,
So the next scene that I took notes on was where we see Miles like in his office,
mm-hmm.
and
The
he's like doing some research on, potential parole violators.
right, and there's all these pictures of like dead, like I guess little girls or just dead bodies, basically on his
On his wall.
regular
Yeah,
at office like work. I'm like, a little weird.
it's a little weird. I don't know if Cheeto's the one that we should be worried about,
Oh, I mean,
but
after you're after you think about this movie, it's like Chino and like the other guys, the way they talk to each other is like way more. It's almost like cordial in a way compared to how Tracy and Miles are always yelling at each other. Did you notice
yeah,
that?
yeah, they're
It,
always like fighting.
yeah, and when Miles is always trying to be like a smartass, but just comes off like the biggest douche most of the time. I'm
No,
like,
and like, yeah, he comes off like both a douchebag and the biggest dork in the
yeah,
world.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm just like, can I go hang out with Chino for a while? You guys keep yelling at each other. It's like,
Basically,
please.
my head canon is that Miles is actually Screech from Saved by the Bell. And what happened is he started working out, right?
Hmm.
Thinks he's a bit of a tough guy now. Learn how
It's
to
like
do a
Carrot
little bit of
Head or
karate,
Carrot
but he's
Top.
not great at it because,
Hmm.
he gets beat up all the time. So yeah, he's just Screech with a giant chip on his shoulder, basically. And I love how in the office, I laughed out loud so hard. Miles looks up like a parole violator and prints up a picture of him,
It's Chino.
looks at it.
Hmm.
Oh, Chino looks at it. He just printed this up, this full page picture of, and then immediately crumples up the picture and throws it away. Why'd you print this up?
Oh, it's I don't know. It's he's trying to hide it from people or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
like a Mission Impossible kind of deal,
yeah.
but
And then from there, Miles goes to confront Chino.
at a biker
Uh,
bar. Hmm.
no. This is when they're outside.
Hmm.
Like they're just talking like outside somewhere. I don't even know where it was,
Right.
but like Miles walks up to Chino and Twos, and basically he's just telling him how he's gonna like watch him and
Oh
yada
yeah,
yada. Chino's like,
he's
I'm a
filming
changed
him with his
man.
camcorder. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at one point, like Miles pulls out some handcuffs and says, "Remember these? I saved these for you. Why don't you put them on and save us a lot of time?" And like he acts like it's like this big burn.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And then how would you describe? Because Twos then goes to like kind of attack Miles, and Miles
Hmm.
very quickly kind of like does this weird move where he like takes his arm and flips him over on his back.
Hmm.
But Twos falls so gently to the ground on his back, and I was like, oh no, these stunts are gonna be terrible. But then
Hmm.
later, Twos has a big fight scene, and he does a bunch of stunts really well. So I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, he was just, you got to watch out for your back, or maybe he was just warming up that day or something.
Yeah. He
Um,
basically it's supposed to be like Miles gives him like a big like a hip toss in wrestling or
right,
something,
right.
but instead Two's just very gently does like a forward roll onto the ground.
Oh man, yeah. There's another funny thing about that scene. It's because it's just a lame line from Miles where he looks at Twos and he goes, huh, "Where'd you get him from? Rent a clown?" It's like,
Yeah.
wow, Wow.
That's what makes twos angry, actually, and leads to a fight. And then, like, it's not even a fight. It's literally, like I said, just Miles kind of sidesteps him. And then Chino is like, "You don't got to fight this guy." It's like, he's not fighting him, brother.
Oh, I forgot to mention one of my sort of hypothesis for the creation of this film is that I think a lot of the, I guess, dialogue was probably improv. I imagine they went off of a scriptment, as they call it, where it's just all like they just had the scenes written down and they showed up and then just sort of like threw it all together from there.
Well, when you have these fine thespians, I mean, Steve, maybe the Groundlings should, hire these guys as teachers, because these guys are improv masters.
100%. So
And then I think next is like Miles goes to like a mechanic shop, but it's like the police's mechanic
yeah,
shop.
it's like the police motor pool. I guess that's I don't know if that's the proper term or not, but that's what I wrote down. And this like really, really sort of solidified the greatness of this film.
Yeah,
Yeah, did you want to take it or?
yeah. So basically, Miles shows up, and this is when we are introduced to Tracy, who's a cop, and they just start.
No, she wasn't introduced. She was just standing there. Like
Yeah,
there
she
was
standing
yeah,
there.
she wasn't doing anything. She's just there to talk to Miles.
So yeah, Miles goes up to her, and they just immediately start yelling at each other. Like, they reminded me of that SNL sketch where Will Ferrell would do the guy that can't tell how loud he's being.
Right,
He's got like a
right.
disease. Like, that's how they were yelling at each other.
I think the idea like is that the director, Daddy Donahue, he was like, okay, we're gonna throw in like someone's working on a car over here, they're just faking it, so we're gonna throw the sound effects in later, but it's really loud, so you guys need to like talk loudly, like you're talking over the mechanic stuff
exactly.
here, and they just yell at the top of their lungs.
And they're like maybe 2 feet from each other.
And they're supposed to be having just a regular conversation too, because like, at first, I don't know, they sort of yell at each other about I don't even really remember, and then at the end he ends up hitting on her, and she goes out
Right,
on
they
a
start
date.
flirting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like at one point she asks him if he's the video cop.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically he says something. This is where we find out he's like, yeah, my show's been on for 16 weeks, but he's like yelling at the top of his lung.
Right.
And she's like, they're saying that you're the video cop, and then he yells,
We're all potential video cops. Like what? What is that?
Like, everybody isn't walking around with a camcorder. Like, that's something you would say now because everybody has a cell phone with a camera,
That's true. And then she says, yeah, I hope you're not in over your head. And he just goes, no, I'm not.
And then they start flirting, and he asked her to dinner. And this is not the first time that they've been on a date, because she talks about the last time they were on a date, and she says, the food, I remember our date. The food was cold, but everything else was hot.
Yeah. That's one of Tracy's many great lines. And I also have another sort of thing to throw out there is, all right, did you notice that it basically becomes Tracy's movie and she has all the best lines? Do you think perhaps she was dating Sean at the time, or maybe even the dad or something, and they were just like, she was like, I'm gonna make you a star, baby, so they like gave her
maybe I mean, honestly, I think it was a good decision, because neither of them is strong enough to carry the movie on their own.
Right.
And listen, I'm not even saying that they're strong enough to do it together,
Right.
but by kind of splitting it, it makes you kind of you don't really get sick of either character.
Right, because you would get
if that
bored
makes
too
sense.
fast if it was just one or the other. Yeah, I got you. That's that makes.
I hate to say, but Patrick Donahue might know what he's doing. Like, I feel like he knows he's not making a good movie, but he knows how to somehow make it entertaining one way or another. But yeah, so they agreed to have Miles cook dinner for her, and the next scene is him at his house cooking dinner. And this scene is insane. This is like the calm before the storm, basically. This is after this, like the movie tends to just be all action. But Miles is cooking. He's gonna make spaghetti, and he's boiling pasta, and it's just pasta boiling. And I'm sure you've boiled pasta before. It doesn't really like have like a smell per se, you know. But he's smelling it like he is Gordon Ramsay cooking his grand opus, you know.
He's also monologuing to himself, and he's like, "Oh, well, this is my secret family recipe." Like, and
Yeah.
it's like, why do we need to know that? Like, no one cares.
Well, Steve, did you notice how he made his tomato sauce?
Not really. Please tell me.
Steve, he microwaved it. That's what he puts out of the microwave is the fucking marinara
So
sauce.
obviously, the Donahue men don't cook their own spaghetti.
No. So he's boiling pasta, fine. But then he's just like heating up marinara sauce that we see the jar. So it's not like a family recipe. We see the jar of the Prego or whatever on the counter. And then he just like mixes it together. He like has a little taste like, she's gonna love this.
Right. And then she shows up. I love the doorbell sound effect. It's like the fakest. It's like, their doorbell doesn't sound like that.
Steve, did you notice that? Like, I guess I'll talk about it later on, but a little preview for the audience and probably for you because I noticed it, but I played it back for someone last night to make sure I wasn't crazy. That they use Star Wars laser sound effects during the finale, not once but twice.
I think I heard one, and it sounded really. I'm like, did that just happen? Like, why was that even in there?
Yeah, they use like stormtrooper laser sounds.
Wow.
We'll get to it later, but yeah. But yeah, she shows up. She pretends like what he's making smells good, and then they kind of like start to get it on.
They make out before dinner. What a bunch of whores.
I guess they're just working up an appetite,
Yeah,
for that
there you go. Well,
microwaved spaghetti.
That's why the spaghetti was cold, but everything else was hot, baby.
I guess. Oh, that may be, Steve, because by the time they eat it, it's gotten cold. Patrick, man, he's a genius.
Look out, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Patrick.
Then the movie makes the very sensible transition of going from them getting ready to make love to the next scene is at a playground.
Yep.
That's what you want to do for your next transition.
Of course. Yeah. Well, hey, Patrick Donahue is a genius. So, hey, who are we to question him? Yeah, like dude's playing horseshoes, and then out of nowhere, Chino.
Miles is playing horseshoes with somebody else because he's a badass.
Right, of course, and he hits it. He gets I don't know how to play horseshoes. Like
he gets a horseshoe in one.
Yeah, hole in one. Yeah, whatever it is, and of course
he gets a touchdown in horseshoes.
And then a little girl gets kidnapped by Twos pretty much does the kidnapping. Did you notice throughout the movie that
Chino is waiting for him like in a car?
Right. Like Chino does like zero fighting. I have a feeling he was the one guy they were friends with who wasn't a stuntman.
Yeah, I think he only shoots people.
Yeah, pretty much. But anyway,
like Chino, we need you for your acting skills.
And the way that you always say things the same way in the same rhythm. So yeah, they kidnap this little girl. Man, this again, they just kept raising the bar with this movie. Like, so Miles runs after them. I think he jumps in a car or something.
He jumps on it in a motorcycle.
Yeah, motorcycle. That's what it is, because we get a pretty cool stunt with that.
He's chasing them. They're like in a car.
And out of nowhere, Chino and Twos are just like, we got to ditch the kid. And, I mean, luckily the stunt didn't really work, but they throw the little girl out of the car. Like,
right.
I'm like,
and they have the kid do her own stunt.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just like being thrown into like some bushes or whatever. And there could have been like a crash pad there.
The car stops too, because originally they're going, and then they cut, and the car like really quick, and the car is obviously stopped, and they just sort of let her out. But still,
yeah. I'm surprised they didn't just like throw like a dummy or something out of a moving car.
And yeah, that's the thing. This is where the the sort of kid aspect kind of puts a little bit damper on what would be an otherwise fun movie. But
I don't know, man. I mean, the kids do their own stunts here, so
yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, you know what I mean. But
yeah. But yeah, so like Miles is like chasing them for like a long time on the motorcycle, and basically
mm,
they throw the kid out to try and get him to stop. But at one point, they have this crazy sequence where while Miles is chasing them, they like slam on the brakes, Chino and the bad guy, and
mm,
Miles basically does like the motorcycle goes over the top of the car and kind of comes down barely makes it past the hood of the car. In fact, I think like the back tire catches the hood, but still lands. And then they do a thing where like Chino is like bumping his car
mm.
into the back tire of the motorcycle, and they're going like at a pretty high rate of speed to be doing that. Like it's kind of a crazy stunt,
Yeah,
man.
it's pretty impressive. And you forgot to mention that somehow Miles was able to have time to check on the little girl and catch up to like Twos and Chino, you
Oh,
know?
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah.
right.
It just I'm like, wow, he's a fast guy, that Miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that was a
They end up like losing him or something. I can't remember exactly how. Do they get into a fight with him?
I think let's see, I have it down here. All right, he ends up sliding down a hill.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because this is like one of the many vehicles that gets destroyed. The motorcycle goes off like the side of the cliff, and so
And
does
yeah, Miles and Twos.
Miles.
They have a pretty good fight scene that ends with Miles sliding down a hill. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And then, like, do we see Miles like taking care of his wounds or going to the hospital or anything like that? Nope.
Nope.
Now, out of nowhere, Miles is filming some guys stealing cars.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah. He's
back
back
at
to
it.
his job.
I mean, I would say he was on a nice cocktail of cocaine and steroids, but clearly he wasn't on steroids.
Yeah. I mean, he's in good shape, but yeah, he's not like roided
Right,
up or
right, right.
anything. But Chino, after they finally get rid of Miles, Chino once again says, "Let's go get a beer." Uh,
He just has
Loves his beer.
three lines and then that monologue at the end, which we will get to.
And we're not doing this whole chase scene with the kidnapping of the kid like any justice.
Oh
Like
no,
it's
you got to see this stuff to believe. I mean, it's so awesome.
like all of this would have been if you were to do it in a modern movie, even a cheap one, you would probably CGI every stunt
Yeah, and that
because
stuff
it's
doesn't.
just unreasonably dangerous.
Hmm, for sure. And okay, so let's see. Miles is filming some guys. All right, so this is the scene where Miles slides around on top of the car. No, actually, this is a different time. There's just
No, yeah, yeah. Miles, yeah. So Miles is trying to get these carjackers who like
mhm.
get in a car and they're like starting to drive away. And I don't remember how Miles ends up on the roof of their car, but he does, and he's like holding a camcorder in one hand, hanging onto the roof with the other, and he's like, "Oh, stop, guys!" And it's clearly dubbed over audio. And
Right.
then to get him off the roof, they're in a parking lot. They start like driving back and forth, like forward and backwards, forward and backwards.
Mhm.
And every time like they go forward, like he'll like flip over the roof, but he still stays on the roof, hanging on with one hand, but he'll like flip to the back of the car, and then he'll flip to the front of the car. And it's so funny. He's still holding onto his camcorder the whole time. And
Mhm.
again, I mean, I would assume like they probably had him wired onto the car because otherwise I don't know how you'd be able to hold on like that while
Right.
still flipping over it.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's just like, whoa, whoa, hey, stop the car, guys. Whoa. It's
Yeah.
it's impressive and terrible.
Oh, absolutely. And so after that, he gives the car stealers or whatever they are the old video cop treatment. And I will.
Yeah, he gets into the car. He like breaks the back windshield,
Mhm.
if I remember correctly.
Oh, this.
And he starts fighting with the guys in the back seat.
Yeah, I forgot the the action scene still wasn't
And
over.
and then for some reason, rather than stay in the parking lot, like the guy driving the car could have just stopped the car
Hmm.
and helped his friend fight him. They like drive out. He like drives out to like somewhere where it's like very dark. It's impossible to see what's going on in the back. Everyone's
Hmm.
on you to see like a foot or a punch or something. But yeah, I don't understand. And I remember correctly, this scene ends with the car gets like it hits like another car and they both explode and the car goes up in the air. And I guess at this point, Miles had gotten out of the car. I don't remember it happening because again, it was so dark. But yeah, this is like vehicle number 4 or 5 that's been completely destroyed in this film.
Yeah. And then
and this is like 20 minutes into the movie.
Oh yeah, like the midpoint of this film when I
thought it was the end.
Well, yeah.
It feels like it should be the end.
Yeah. And yeah. That's exactly what I thought. But I will say I thought the cinematography, and it shows that again somebody cared when like the cops show up to get the the car thieves, and
I know what you're gonna say.
they have all they have the fog going, they have the lights. Like it actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, it did. The guys are tied up on the post, and their chest says "Parole Violators," and the cop walks up to them, looks at his chest, and he goes, and I quote, "Video cop, I'm beginning to like this guy."
Oh yeah, you nailed it. Yep. The cops, see, even the cops love Video Cop. He's giving him the rub there. So now Miles goes. Is this the first time going to this bar, or maybe the second?
Yes, this is like one of like 4 or 5 times that he goes to this bar, and every time he goes to this bar, a giant fight erupts.
Up. Yep. So,
but every time he walks in, they're like nobody like tries to stop him or anything. It's like it's fine. I guess they're just like at this bar, they'll give anybody a second, third, fourth, fifth chance. Like they will look the other way every time.
Yep. So
I love how when Miles walks in, not only does he look like a doofus, like we mentioned earlier, canary yellow polo and Dockers, he walks in trying to like talk like cool or something. Yes. He walks in, he's like, "Jojo, my man."
Oh yeah, yeah. So he goes to ask for information from Jojo, and then a pointless bar fight breaks out. Then they go outside and then they fight some more, and they fight in slow motion, and it totally reminded me of Dark Place. Did you get those vibes?
Yeah. I got those vibes too. And Jojo, like kind of before he and Miles start fighting, like Miles is clearly like bowing up to him about to fight, and Jojo just like looks at some guy and goes, beat this guy up. Oh. And like then so Miles beats that guy, then Jojo turns to the guy, you fight him. Right. So I guess Jojo can just tell anybody to like fight. And then Jojo and Miles end up outside the bar, and that's when like Miles beats him up. But then like, and Miles is just trying to get information from him about Chino or whatever, I guess.
Right.
But then all these guys that were in the bar come out, and Jojo's like, "Oh, they work for me," even though Jojo works for Chino. Yeah. It's weird. So now we're outside the bar, and there's a huge fight scene where like Miles takes on like, I don't know, like a dozen or so guys.
A lot of guys.
And it's a pretty, for the most part, it's a pretty good fight scene. There's some really cool stunts here. A lot of guys take some good hits. There's a couple like kind of weird parts where he just like does like a very light shove, to like one guy. He like throws himself into another guy. But yeah, there's some really cool stunts here. Some really tough hits involving that car. What did you think about this fight?
Yeah, I have it written down right here to mention the choreography in this scene. And I mean, yeah, it's just I always wonder like. Because I assume that Sean is probably the fight coordinator, and he's just like, okay, so in this scene, I want to show that not only can I give hits, but I can also take them, and
he gets beat up a lot.
Rinse and repeat over and over again.
I think he does. Does he win this overall scene? I can't remember this fight.
I feel like he does. I
like barely, right? Like he gets beat up quite a bit, but he manages to like eke out a victory.
Well, he always gets out in the end. He's miles long.
But we should say I did write one of Miles' one-liners here when he's talking to Jojo outside before the giant fight scene. Jojo tells him, "Get out of my face," and Miles says, "Get out of my face? Where did you pick up that kind of language?"
Oh, God, yeah. His one-liners make no sense. None.
Yeah. Next scene, I believe, is the scene where we see, like, Tracy is making a cake in her kitchen from, like, 1971.
Right.
Everything in this kitchen is, like, wood-paneled, including the freaking dishwasher. Did you notice that? The dishwasher? It's like... Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. It's like a wood paneled dishwasher. It's terrible. But yeah, so this is where we find out Tracy has a daughter named Suzanne, and that's most.
Isn't it
Sorry,
weird
you.
that, I mean, why not, like, Suzanne is the name, like, of a 37-year-old, like, office professional. It should be just Susie, you know? Like,
Yeah, I actually, for some reason, in my notes for a long time, I don't know how I did this. I had Tracy's name as Susie and the kid as Tracy, just because I guess in my mind those made more sense.
they do.
But anyway, so we established that she's got like a little girl.
Hmm.
She gets a phone call from Miles where they pick up where they left off, and by that I mean they are yelling at each other.
Hold on, I've got Tracy's line here, right here. How dare you try to tell me? Oh, wait, no, I started too late. So Miles calls and yells at Tracy, and she says, I'm doing my job, damn it. I'm doing my job. She hangs up, and then Miles calls back. Tracy picks up the phone and says, how dare you try to tell me how to do my job? I'm doing my job. And then hangs up. Like, why did it have to happen twice, you hell? Why twice?
It's so funny. And the reason why Miles is calling her and yelling is because he's mad at the progress of the police's investigation. Uh so yeah, and Tracy's like, we've got like a dozen guys on it. I'm doing my job.
Hmm.
Uh but the funniest part of this scene might be that Miles, when he's dialing her number back, he does it so angry and slow, which we've all done the slow dial back in the day, but he does it so awkward. It's like he dials a phone number like he just got his fingers that day. Like it's so weird and awkward.
Oh, man. Just like this
Anyways, well, so
movie.
while this is happening, after they hang up, we see that Chino has like pulled up, and Chino is like, sees that Susie, Tracy's kid, is
Mhm.
outside playing. So he kidnaps her. Susie gets another phone call. She thinks it's Miles. She starts to once again say that she's doing her job. But then Miles is like, "Oh, it's me, or Chino. It's me, Chino. I've got your kid."
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Gito
and if
calls to tell her that she's been kidnapped, and this is this is like this is the what motivates the series of events here is just Chino tells him to bring him miles long. He'll know where to find me. Like like why did he have to kidnap him? All he has to do is say, "Hey, Miles, come and get me," because he was already following
yeah,
him to begin with. So,
yeah, right. Miles is already going after him anyway. Like, there's no
mhm,
need to kidnap this kid other than, I mean, I guess, Chino, it's just the thing he likes to do. We've established, the kind of crime that he likes to commit. I don't think
mhm.
we need to repeat it for the sake of the algorithm. But so, yeah, it's no surprise that he's kidnapping a little girl, but yeah, very weird, very unnecessary. He does tell Tracy that not to get the cops involved, that if he does, he'll kill her,
Mhm.
the daughter, blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
The funniest thing, though, is like, then Tracy goes to Miles, like physically goes to Miles' office, and she shows up in a huff, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you're so mad about just two phone calls."
Yeah.
Basically, Miles is like, "You shouldn't be mad that I called you and yelled at you
But
twice."
you did leave out a crucial scene because, I mean, it's all crucial, right? And that
Right,
is,
right, right.
okay, so Miles was exiting his office as Tracy was pulling up in her car. She almost runs him over, but then runs
Oh,
out,
that's right.
and that's when they did. But
That's what he
before that
says.
scene, Miles was just casually loading a gun again at the office, and then he's walking through the parking lot, just sort of waving it around, like.
To no one.
Right, and this is California. Well, maybe they were a little more lax with gun laws back in the '90s, but hey, whatever.
I think starting to get a feeling as to why this guy was only a cop for 6 months.
Right, right. Well, there we also earlier when he was when they were yelling at each other, him and Tracy. I remember there was one time where he was like, "Can't for once, can't you just bend the law?" It's like. What? I mean, that's
Right?
called being a criminal, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, yeah. Miles has a weird view of justice and law and order.
He
That's for
really
sure.
hates parole violators. Everyone else gets a
Yeah,
pass, but parole
yeah.
violators, they go down.
And the funniest thing here is like, so Tracy then tells Miles, what happened. And Miles, who's been going after these guys and doing it, circumventing the law, and was just complaining about the police not doing enough, then he tells her, "Oh, shouldn't you get the police involved?" Like suddenly he wants nothing to do with it now that Cheeto's on the offensive.
Right. See, that's why he's such an asshole. But
oh my God! Then they go to the bar again. Oh my God! This is when we first see the bouncer, who's just like sitting. So Miles and Tracy they decide to like
burst in, guns waving everywhere. That's
right. But what's the first thing that happens when they walk in? Tracy like whips her gun at the bouncer who's just sitting there, and the way he gets knocked out by this is, has this man ever fallen asleep? It's like he doesn't know what it's like. He just like bobbles his head and then like closes his eyes. It's so weird. But yeah, what I love about this, like they come in, they say something that's like hard to understand because of the music. I think Tracy says, Tracy says like, freeze, we're the police. No, you're not. Miles it was established Miles was only a cop for 6 months. But she's like, freeze, we're the police. Everybody just relax, I think is what she says. And then they get taken over by the bad guys in the bar in like about 3 seconds.
Yeah, they finally, our heroes go down and they get kidnapped and thrown into a van. And then they
don't just get kidnapped. I mean, they get beat up. Both Miles and Tracy get beat up a lot. Like they the bad guys are like holding their hands, holding them back, and Chino or whoever, not Chino, somebody, the bad guys in the bar are just taking free shots. Tracy gets punched in the face like 7 times.
Oh yeah, like I mean, I don't mean to skimp on the action or the brutality. I mean, we'd be here all day because every fight in this film is an epic fight for the most part.
At this point, Tracy and Miles are basically like bloody messes, and they stay bloody messes throughout the rest of the film. They generally get bloodier and bloodier, except for a couple times that there's a little bit of time between fights where they get cleaned up, but they still have some bruising and stuff.
Right. So yeah, basically we get a pretty long action sequence here. We'll try to hit the highlights.
Oh wait! I am so sorry. There is one line that Chino says at the bar after they capture them.
All right.
So Chino goes to Miles and says, "Guess what? I'm gonna do to her daughter what I did to the girl that you threw me in jail for." Because I don't think we've mentioned that Chino was in jail because, oh my God! I just realized, Steve.
What?
How long was Chino in jail? Do you remember?
3 months or 6?
5 years.
5. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Miles was only a cop for 6 months.
Wow.
So are we to believe that Miles was a cop 5 years ago for 6 months? Because Miles is the one that got him in jail.
Right. Yeah.
But they make it seem like Miles was just recently a cop.
Right.
Like he just recently got out of the force. So
it's really confusing.
Anyways, Chino says to Miles, I'm going to do the thing, to Susie that I did to the girl that you got me in prison for. But then he says, the cool thing about it is you can only watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Then they have the long kind of action sequence because now they're like thrown into vans.
Yeah, we get the double kick to the groin in the van here, which sends the guy's head through the skylight. Oh, this was kind of funny because Miles, he kicks the driver out of the van, and then the guy just sort of very cartoonily runs into a street sign and hits his head.
Yeah, the guy gets like thrown out of a moving van, actually gets thrown out while it's moving. Kudos to him. And then he starts running after the van, but I guess he's just paying so much attention to the van, he doesn't notice that there's like a Ped Zing sign or something, and he just like runs into like a cartoon head first.
And we really
it made me like laugh out loud.
Yeah, just because it was so random. It was like, do we really need to see what happened to that guy after he got thrown out of the vehicle?
Yeah,
and
the thing is, I usually hate that gag. The guy hits his head on like something that's hanging a little low or whatever. I hate that gag because you can see it coming a mile away and it's not funny. Well, in this case, this is the first time I've seen it where it's like generally funny, and I did not expect it at all. Did you?
No. I mean, that's the great thing about this film is that you just don't know what's gonna happen the first time you watch it. It's just
And during this fight in the van, the vans are moving. There's like guys being like flung into the glass, into the windows in the van, and they're like breaking out. And at one point, it cuts to Chino, who's in another van, and he can tell that there's a lot of commotion back in the other van. And somebody's like, "Oh, what's going on in the other van?" And Chino goes, "Don't worry about it."
yeah. Okay, Chino, whatever you say.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically this one ends with this is the one where Miles, I think he crashes the van off the cliff, and
Yeah.
like Tracy's knocked out, and they all think Miles is dead. And wouldn't you know, like right after they leave, he wakes up, he's resurrected. And they
Grabs his gun.
right, takes a single bullet and puts it in his pocket that he never. I mean, I guess we could assume it's the bullet at the very end of the movie, but they don't really address this. It's whatever. And they take Chino takes.
Yeah, they take Tracy to like some
shack.
kind of like a shack that's like their hideout or something. And while Tracy like sees that like her daughter is in one of the other rooms, and she just starts yelling, "My baby, my baby!" Which she yells over and over and over again.
Yeah.
How would you describe her pleading for her life and her baby here?
It's about as annoying as the rest of her performance. Like,
It's pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, it's like they should have punched her sooner or something. But it's hilarious though. So yeah, then Twos is trying to put the moves on Tracy while
he's trying to assault her sexually.
Yes, well, I mean,
I don't know if I'd call it putting the moves on her.
I mean, yeah, the bad moves, okay. And this, oh god, this was so good. Even seeing it for the second time. Miles,
I watched this scene. I know what you're going to talk about. I watched this like 4 times.
Miles crashes through the window, this tiny, just square.
From the outside to the inside.
Yeah, and he doesn't he land in like a perfect 3-point stance like a freaking superhero?
It's crazy. This window, it must be like 2 feet by 2 feet or something. Like it's very small. Maybe a little bit. Maybe it's
You're
3 by
not
3
expecting anyone to crash through it.
Yeah, he like crashes through the window. As he goes in, flies through the window head first. He rolls forward as he's landing on the ground and perfectly like springs up to his feet. And then Twos turns to him and goes, "Where did you come from?"
And Miles says, "The window."
And did you notice that as he's saying the window, like it gets cut off, kind of?
Yeah.
He's like, "The window," and then like it kind of cuts off, but it's like, Twos, he literally just came through a window that was like 5 feet behind you. Where the door is closed, the entrance is closed. Where else would he have come from?
I know.
Did you not hear the loud crashing?
I don't know why they felt they even needed those lines there. I mean, he should have just jumped through and they should have just started fighting. Like, I mean, maybe they just.
I think it was supposed to be like in the delivery. I think it was probably supposed to be more like Twos, like, "Oh, you're here," kind of a thing. Where did you come from? Not literally like, "How did you get in here?" Just more like, "I thought you were dead," kind of a thing.
I'm guessing they, probably thought they were going to have like a big like warehouse that day. So maybe when he did like, jump through a window, it would be like, "Hey, where'd you come from?" But instead they get the little shack that day and it makes no sense.
Yeah. I really think it was supposed to be like "Oh, I thought you were dead. Where did you come from?" And then Miles is supposed to quip the window as a joke. But instead, they didn't. They just didn't do that for some reason.
Yep,
but I think that's what it's supposed to be.
Failed spectacularly. So yeah, Miles fights Twos and wins, and he realizes that Chino took Susie. And then Miles.
Yeah, because at this point, the idea we forgot to mention is that Twos is basically going to get to have his way with, before Miles gets there, Twos was going to have his way with Tracy, while Chino was going to go have his way with her daughter.
Right. And this part is pretty hilarious because so Miles stops Tracy from killing Twos, but she still grabs an axe and like she's having a hard time lifting it. She thrusts it at Twos' like crotch, basically.
Yeah, she's like swinging it like down to the ground, and with every swing she's getting closer and closer to his crotch, because they're trying to get him to give him information, and like Tracy kind of wants to kill him, and Miles like, no, we need him for information. And Tracy had like this was like a really long fight scene too between the three of them, between Twos, Tracy, and Miles. And Twos, this is where I was saying like Twos does a lot of stunts. He like flies back out through that window.
Yeah,
I think
something like that.
he gets kicked through, or maybe it was a door. I don't remember. Tracy ends up like, because Twos gets the better of Miles, as everybody does at one point, and Tracy gets like a shard of like a plank
right
or something.
I remember that.
That's got like sharp edges, and she like stabs Twos in the stomach repeatedly, which is pretty brutal if you think about it.
Oh yeah. Wait till you see what she does to JoJo later.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, they just leave Twos, and then they go back to the same.
Yeah, because he's not helping them, and then they're
Right.
like, they leave him to die.
So they go to the bar.
Like the heroes they are.
Yeah. Like they're assholes. So basically he goes and he bullies JoJo again. And then this is when we get to meet Bouncer the Bouncer. He intervenes, and Miles gets beat up even more. And then
This bouncer is very reasonable, though,
Yeah.
because he's like, first he's like, hey, can you just stop hurting him? And he like, well, stop. And the bouncer is probably the worst actor in the whole movie.
and that's saying something.
His delivery is just like awful. Good casting visually, looks wise, you know. Big imposing dude, and all his like his physicality looks good. All his kicks, his punches, they all look really good, but anytime he opens his mouth, it's atrocious.
Right.
But basically, Miles is getting the shit beat out of him by this bouncer, and then Miles stands up after getting kicked, and he tells the bouncer, hey, can't we solve this some other way?
Yeah.
And the bouncer just very reasonably is like, well, what do you need?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just trying to find Cheeto. He's like, oh, why didn't you say so?
I've been
and then
instructed
they,
to
like,
take you there. Something
Yeah.
like, so stupid.
So why didn't you just take him there from
Yeah.
the beginning? Yeah, so they take like their guns, the bouncer and the other bad JoJo, they take like Tracy and Miles' weapons, and then they take them to a house, I guess, with a pool in the backyard, and that's where Chino is waiting for them, and they've tied up Tracy's daughter. She's all tied up, but she's on a float in the middle of a pool.
Yeah. And basically, Chino gives this big monologue, but he also mentions that, well, no, that's later. Basically,
I love this monologue. You're talking about the monologue where like Chino starts talking about luck.
Oh yeah. Oh, you want to take it? I want to hear you deliver it.
I mean, I didn't write. All I wrote was the luck story. But yeah, he says something about like how he doesn't like people telling him like what kind of luck he has.
Well, it was
or
weird. He was like,
remember.
people would say I was lucky to eat breakfast, to eat lunch.
Oh, right. He's talking about in prison. In prison, the guards
Right.
would tell him that.
And now I'm the one who get to tell people how lucky they are. Like, I just remember it ended
Yeah,
that.
and he's like, and Miles, your luck is bad luck. That's the only kind of luck you have left.
Yeah.
And your luck has just ran out.
Yeah. That was too good of a
Oh,
job.
and this is also when Miles says that, like, I can't remember if it's Miles or Chino that brings it up first, but like his name. And it's like, Miles Long? That's your full name? And he's like, makes fun of him for like his name.
Well,
and,
it's weird though. I don't know why this is in there, and I don't know if you noticed it, but like when he asks him and he says, "Yeah," he like grabs his crotch for some reason. Miles does.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Miles is like, yeah, that's my name, and then he grabs himself.
Yeah,
But it's weird. It's like Miles doesn't know where a penis usually is because he's clearly trying to grab himself, but he like kind of just grabs his thigh, like the inside of his thigh. Maybe he's implying like he's very well endowed. I don't know.
I think that's like the joke. And boy, is it a joke for sure.
So then like Chino gives Miles this like weird ultimate. I don't like this option. He's like, yeah, if you can fight this
So-and-so.
other
Yeah.
goon, I can't remember his name. I think Tico or something. He had like a weird name.
Mm-hmm.
If you can fight this guy for every 30 seconds that you fight him, hold on, I gotta backtrack. So Chino has this like spear, and it's like basically he took the end of like a pool thing that you would use
Yeah,
to like
net,
clean
pool net,
leaves from a
yeah.
pool, and just put like there's like a knife at the end of it or
Yeah.
something. He's like, for every 30 seconds that you're fighting this guy, I'm gonna poke a hole in the raft that the flotation device that the little girl is on. So I guess the idea is like if he takes too long in the fight, she'll end up sinking and drowning.
Right.
But doesn't he say, Miles, if you beat him, I will kill you anyway? Like,
Yeah. It almost sounds like they were trying to establish a ticking clock for some reason.
yeah, it's like a ticking time bomb
Yeah.
gag. So they start fighting, and it's so weird because like Miles and Tracy end up fighting like
Tons
everybody.
of dudes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And at one point, when Miles and Tracy are kind of getting a little bit of the upper hand, there's a guy in the background just watching. Like one of the bad guys is just watching. He's not getting involved, just patiently sitting. I was like, okay.
Right. Right. And there's something significant though. Tracy makes JoJo shoot his own dick off.
Thank you.
And then somehow later, JoJo is still alive and okay, and then he attempts to drown Tracy and her daughter.
Yeah, like not even a minute later.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
like jumps in the pool. I mean, and jumps with full vigor.
And that pool is pretty disgusting.
Oh, I know, it's so gross. I can't believe they had them in there, especially the little girl. But
I hope they all
and
got paid well that day.
I don't think so. But yeah, it was just really weird. The only person in this movie that really sells their injuries, well, there's three people that sell their injuries throughout the film. Tracy, what's his name, Miles, and Twos, because he's selling his stomach injury the rest of the movie. So I'll give him that. He's like holding his stomach and bandaged up the whole movie.
Yeah. So
what did you think about the way? So the guy that Miles was told, like, hey, you got to try to fight this guy, you know, by Chino. The guy like beats up Miles, of course, kicks him into the pool.
Awesome.
And at this point,
yeah.
the spear is in the pool because Tracy had like wrangled it away from Chino while she was in the pool, which made no sense. Anyways, Miles apparently kills the guy by chucking the spear at him. And I say apparently because
they never show
Miles, we see him throwing at him, but we never see it hitting the guy ever. We just see him throwing it, and then you hear off camera, ugh!
Yeah, see, that's like one of the times when they forgot to film a reaction shot.
Yeah, I guess so. So, yeah, that guy is dead. Tracy's kid, Susie, has drowned, though.
Right, and Miles gives her CPR, and I guess this is when Tracy curses her.
She cusses her because
right.
So Tracy tells her, "Damn it, Susie, breathe," or something like that. And they like resuscitate Susie, but she's like in a coma. And when they're at the hospital, the next scene, like what's her face, Tracy is broken over. Tracy just keeps saying to Susie's body, "I didn't mean to cuss you. I didn't mean to cuss you."
But before that, how about the performance of that doctor?
Oh my god!
And
it's like the doctor's in a coma.
And the thing that I also liked is that the doctor, the man of science, says, "Oh, we just don't know too much about it. You need to have faith and pray. See ya."
Yeah. I'm gonna prescribe 3 prayers a day, and see if she gets better.
Yeah. So yeah, they make a really big, Tracy makes a really big deal about cursing. And at one point she says that's why she's in a coma. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's very strange. And then like Chino goes to like this other gang that he's trying to recruit, a gang of skinheads basically.
Motorcycle gang, yeah.
Yeah, and they're definitely supposed to be Nazis because a few of them have like Nazi type tattoos. But Chino and the skinhead guy, the head guy, have this weird conversation with the skinheads guy. He's like, "Hey, you know, we don't like your kind, you know, like that, you know, do violate little kids." And then Chino's like, "Yeah, but we both hate what's face." And then Chino tells him, like, puts his hand over his other hand, like kind of like in a seductive romantic manner. It's like, "Hey, we shared a cell together. You didn't mind." And then I can't tell, it's inaudible because of the music.
Right.
But the implication is like Chino and this guy were having sex in prison is what I got. Is that what you got?
Yes. I'm like,
okay.
Why? Like, is that the connection? Like, why do we even need to know why they have a connection? I thought it was enough that they hated Miles together.
They both, yeah, they both hate Miles more than they dislike each other, basically.
But then they also enjoy sex with one another. It's
just in prison, Steve. I mean, you just.
Oh, I see. What happens in prison stays
You're lucky
in
to be
prison.
having sex with a skinhead. That's what the prison guards would yell at him.
Oh God. So yeah. He recruits
Tracy is like
the
still
motorcycle.
upset.
Yeah. Now we're back at the hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I love this. So like Tracy is like at a church in the hospital, like the little church area,
Mhm.
And then it's weird because then Miles walks in and tells her, "Hey, I'm sorry I haven't been around for support the last 2 days."
What was he doing?
What are you doing? Sorry, there was a sale on baby blue polos. I to take advantage of it.
It was one day
Okay,
only.
so anyways, while this happens, Miles is like, "Hey, do you want to go get some fresh air and go for a ride in my car?" As they're like leaving the church area of the hospital, they see that Tracy's daughter is flatlined all of a
Mhm.
sudden. So the doctors and nurses, they're working on her. They get her resuscitated. And what does Tracy and Miles do? Are they gonna stick around and make sure she's okay? They go, okay. Tracy says, okay, let's go for that drive.
Right. She was reluctant at first. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
she was saying, "Oh, I already told the police. It's their business now." They also, for whatever reason, felt a need to mention that. I mean, I guess it pays off with the character who's about to be introduced, but they mentioned that they're both under investigation.
Yeah, by Internal Affairs.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and
I don't know
then
why Internal Affairs is investigating Miles since he's not a cop, but she
exactly.
says that they want to talk to him too. But yeah, Tracy, you're right. Tracy was very reluctant to like go with Miles to take care of Chino and the gang because she says, "I don't care. I got my kid back." And Miles is like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? You're just gonna let this happen to somebody else?" And she's like, "I don't care. I got mine back."
Right.
And blah blah blah.
Right, like so they tried to have some kind of internal conflict, I guess, but
Yeah.
yeah, right after Suzanne flatlines and she comes back to life, and Tracy changes her mind, and then as
Yeah,
they
it's supposed to be like Tracy realizes, "Oh, I can't let this happen to somebody else."
right, and as they're walking,
So hey, credit where credit's due. I mean, they're giving her a little bit of character development. I mean,
yeah, for some reason, yeah, I guess you need that when you're throwing thugs on rusty nails.
yeah.
So yeah, as they're walking out of the hospital, a man with a notebook follows them, and he's got like a hat. He looks I don't know, like he stepped out of the 50s or something. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And then Tracy and Miles are in the car, and oh, this is a pretty fun line. Miles says there's shotguns in the back. Tracy starts loading. Miles says, "Chino has about 20 guys." And do you know what Tracy says?
Yeah, because Miles is like, "Can you handle that?" or something like that, or is that gonna be a problem? And she goes, "Oh, 10 for you, 10 for me."
And then she cocks the gun, which is
She cocks the gun.
pretty
Yeah.
awesome. So Tracy and Miles discover the guy with the notebook is Internal Affairs. Then the bikers show up, and
Yeah, basically, like the guy was following them.
Mhm.
He notices the Internal Affair guys. They notice that he's following them. So like Miles stops at a field. Tracy and Miles jump out of their cars with guns, and that's when the guy's like, "Hey, look at my badge. I'm an Internal Affairs."
Mhm.
And then the guy from Internal Affairs tells Tracy, "This is not going to look good on your report."
Oh man, that's going to be a T-shirt for us.
Yeah, and then that's when all the bad guys from Chino's gang like come out, and all three of them get kidnapped. Um, I'll let you take it from here because then we get some more awesome action.
And Miles escapes by jumping up and grabbing a tree.
Yeah, he's like on the back of a truck, and as the truck drives under a big tree branch, he like jumps up and grabs it. And as he's jumping up in the air, he manages to kick like two of the guys.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
And
there's
again, it's like done like it's a very real stunt. The how fast would you say that truck was driving? Like maybe like 30 miles an hour or something like that?
For sure. Yeah, it's such a difference from watching like action movies these days. But
Yeah. And the thing is, like, the truck, you would think, like, to do the stunt as safely as possible, you would have it be the last car in the caravan, but it's not. It was, like, the first car. So, like, if he had, like, slipped from that tree or just missed it, he would have fallen either onto a car or the ground and gotten run over by a car. Like the balls on this guy.
He's a Donahue, man. What do you want?
Yeah, yeah.
I know there's one highlight where, for some reason, Miles and one of the thugs are like climbing up a mountain, and the thug pretty much pulls Miles up like by his chin. It looked like the most awkward, uncomfortable thing.
Yeah, it was weird.
And this is when Miles falls far from off of a hill. He hits a tree branch, and he falls in like a
He hits like a bunch of tree branches.
yeah, he hits a bunch of stuff. They
like big thick tree branches, like rib shots.
Yeah, they made this look like it was like the longest fall in like cinema history. But
It looked very painful.
yeah, it's really weird. All right, so he lands in like a creek, and then they immediately cut to a out of focus shot of a waterfall, and just as is about to get into focus, they cut. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was very
So weird.
Yeah, so there's a couple bad guys approaching Miles at the bottom of this like creek, and I don't even remember exactly how he hits them or how he gets one up on them, but like hits them with something. I can't remember. Maybe he kicks their knees or whatever, but he gets out of it.
Right.
And so at this point, like it cuts to this amazing scene with Tracy and the inspector who are in the back of a truck still. And the truck is stopped, and Tracy starts trying to like seduce the goon guy.
Oh man, if you ever wanted your boner to be murdered, like just watch her trying to be like erotic and
Sexy.
and it's not
It's bad.
and it's not just her fault, but just the way it's shot, like
It's like this like shot of her crotch like, going up.
When
And
they pan up and show her face, she's got blood splatter all over the side of her
Yeah.
face. Like, who's gonna be turned on by that?
yeah, and to like show skin, she's like just like pulling her shirt down a little bit past her shoulder,
And
like
then Rogers, the internal affair guy, is going, Tracy, what are you doing?
and then the goon guy like starts tells the inspector, to shut up, and then she starts asking him like what his name is, and he's like Goon, and she says something like, oh, like the bird,
No.
like the type of bird.
Like the Goonie bird. Did you happen to look up to see if a Goonie bird existed?
No, I didn't bother.
Okay, so yeah, she says like the Goonie bird, and then how does Goon respond to that?
He says he gets very angry about this, and he yells, "Don't you ever associate me with a bird!"
Man, I think this is your future wrestling gimmick if you want to get back into wrestling. Just a guy who doesn't want to be associated with birds.
Yeah, he's basically yells about how he doesn't want to be associated with a bird. He rephrases it several different ways. He talks about how birds are weak. And that's why he doesn't want to be associated with a bird. And now he's no longer into her. Like, she is now the least attractive woman in the world for having the audacity to associate him with a bird.
So thank God she has a plan B to get away, and that's to say she has to go to the bathroom.
And even though there's two bad guys here guarding them, does one of them follow her to go to the bathroom? No. Goon's plan to make sure she doesn't get away is, okay, go use the bathroom. I'm going to give you your privacy. Go behind a bush, but you have to shake the bush the whole time. And if you stop shaking it, I'm going to just shoot in that direction because I'm going to assume you've run away. And it's like almost a smart plan, but it's also very, very stupid.
Yes, and speaking of stupid, I mean, how does Tracy handle this? She just goes, all right, Goon, I'm shaking the bush, Goon, just like how you asked. I'm shaking the bush. As she takes off her pants, ties them to the bush so she can get a little bit further away, and then shakes it.
So she keeps shaking the bush, but using her pants to shake the bush, so that way she gets some distance. Which, I mean, it's kind of stupid, right? Like visually, it doesn't look that great, but at least it makes Tracy look smart, So I did appreciate that.
Hey, she is a strong female role model.
But I did appreciate, like, they gave some depth to her character, This is quite the hero's journey for her.
Oh, I'm telling you, man, this is her movie, like for the rest of the movie.
But
basically.
yeah. So what is it that happens next? I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, so the bush stops shaking, obviously. So goon starts like shooting all over, in that direction. And I think Miles shows up at this point.
He does, but I think before that though, Davis, the internal affairs guys, gets shot in the chest. I'm like,
Yes, like in the heart.
yeah, it's so
Does he
brutal.
die? No,
Yeah, like
no.
I'm like, oh, they like murdered the one guy who's comedic on purpose.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no,
But then he just becomes funnier.
yeah, he does. All right, so Tracy goes over to him, and I don't even think this line makes sense, but he
Because
says,
Miles has shown up at this point, and
Mhm.
her and Miles and Tracy have like, gotten rid of Goon and the other bad
"Oh,
guy.
they took the pants off one of the thugs so she can have pants." And then they go over to Davis, and Davis says, "I hope you don't steal my pants." He's like
Yeah, yeah.
bleeding
She's
to
like, I would never
death
do that to you.
and cracking jokes. It's awesome.
Yeah. Why didn't she? Because she knocks out the Goon guy
Mhm.
by hitting him with a rock, possibly kills him. She could have just taken her pants right then and there, because like
Well, he threw him
she's
away.
like right next to her
He
pants.
threw him away.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
I should have known better than to doubt Patrick's
yeah.
his writing ability. I apologize, Patrick.
So yeah, all right. So there's a weird part. They get to where they need to go. Then
Wait a
they
minute. Wait a minute. Do you remember like what happens like when they leave? So yeah, I'm sorry, you're getting to it. Yeah, when they get to like the hideout of the bad guys, and they bring the inspector with them.
right. And well, I don't know why they just can't leave him in the car. They take him out of the car. Well, I guess it's so the car
Well,
can do the stunt that it's about to do later.
yeah, because they're gonna roll the car like into the bad guy's lair.
Right. So yeah, they take instead of taking Davis, the IA guy, to the hospital or anything like that, they just take him out of the car and leave him on like on the ground basically. And what's his name? Miles gives him his notebook, and like they keep going. He'll be okay. He has his
Yeah,
notebook.
because Tracy's like, is he gonna be all right? And yeah, Miles tosses him his notebook. Why would you just like toss it onto his chest? He just was shot in the chest. And then Miles says, he has his notepad. What else could he ask for?
Yeah.
And then the inspector replies, sure, I'll just finish my report. And he starts like writing.
It's so bizarre. It's so hilarious.
This is why I was like convinced that at some point they said, you know what, let's just lean into the absurdity and be ridiculous. And then like Miles and Tracy, like their plan is to like basically let the car like roll by itself, empty, roll into the bad guy's lair as a distraction, which isn't a terrible idea.
Yeah.
What is terrible is that they just put it in neutral and push it, and it's on completely flat ground. So at some point it would stop, but instead it just keeps rolling like infinitely, like at 7 miles an hour.
And it gets weirder because the thugs shoot open the trunk of the car because, like, yeah, that's where they're hiding, in the trunk where they can't get out of. And then, so the trunk pops up, and then they close it, and then the passenger door opens for some reason, and they're like aiming their guns at it and stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
clearly there's no one in the
Why?
car. Like
Why?
I think maybe they wanted to blow up the car, but then they couldn't for some reason. It's really weird.
This is the newest car, then, because that car is like the only car that was built in the 90s in this whole movie. It's like a 91 or a 92 Honda, I think it was. So I'm guessing like that's why. Where all the other cars that get blown up, they're all older. Even the motorcycle looked like a motorcycle from like the early 80s or something. So
Yeah.
but yeah, then Miles and Tracy like walk into this like compound slash warehouse industrial district kind of place with their guns, and they're just like walking around with their guns, and behind Miles and Tracy as they're walking at one point, bad guys are like walking behind them
Right,
and just
they're
hiding, following them,
traversing and changing spots.
like crisscrossing.
yeah, I saw that in another film, I think, but
They could have just shot Tracy and Miles right then and there and ended the movie.
yeah,
It's so weird.
I mean, there's really no. Yeah, I mean, really, yeah. The only motivation is from Tracy and Miles to kill Chino. Yeah. There's no reason. Like they weren't like putting them in a trap or anything. Yeah, you're right. They should have just blown them away. But
Yeah.
he's Miles.
But anyways,
long.
so Miles and Tracy for the next like 15 minutes or so, it's just them shooting out like Chino's gang and the skinheads, fighting them. Lots of people go through like windows.
Lots of people like fall from very high like warehouse ceilings. It's
Yeah, yeah.
oh, and that's speaking of,
Um,
there was one guy who like fell and got caught in a rope, and then for whatever reason, I guess Miles had to finish the job and shoot him. And when they had the close up, you could clearly see his harness. Like, yeah,
I didn't notice the harness.
yeah,
Well, actually, I think that guy meant to like be in like he like purposely goes down on the rope and purposely stops midair,
hmm
thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot them from here." Instead, he just made himself a target.
he did
But
not know
and
who he was messing with.
it's during this scene. It's at 1 hour and 13 minutes of into the movie. So yeah, dude, this last big action sequence is actually like 20 minutes long
hmm
because the movie is an hour and 27 minutes. And at the hour and 13-minute mark, where they've already been doing this long shootout action scene for like a few minutes, is when we hear the Star Wars laser blaster
Right,
sound
right.
effects. And then we hear it again a couple minutes, and it's just there's a guy and Tracy and whatever, they're shooting back and forth, and one of the shots is just like the laser blaster sound effect.
So funny.
It's so weird too because there's like 30 or 40 of these bad guys, and they're spread all throughout the compound, and there's only two good guys, just Tracy and Miles. Yet there's constant shooting.
Right,
Like
right,
the bad
right.
guys are constantly see shots of the bad guys shooting from different locations, but Tracy and Miles can only be in two places. So what are the other guys shooting at? What is going on?
They're shooting at I don't know, Miles's essence. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah. Anyway, so we get the scene where like Tracy and the Terminator woman have their like fight, and a pretty good fight too between
yeah.
those two ladies like really go for it. In fact, I would say that like as far as the close-up shots of hits, they probably have some of the better looking hits.
hmm
So kudos to them. Tracy kills her by hanging the Terminator woman from a nail.
hmm
Just basically like gets the back of her head and like nails her, and then she's like dangling. In a couple other scenes that we see later, just pretty cool shot.
She says,
Um,
"I hope you had your tetanus shot, bitch."
yeah, and then at some point, like Tracy is like outside, but Chino shows up and just like shoots her like two or three times in the chest.
Yeah, but before that though, there's a good Miles stunt. Miles jumps out of a
Oh
window while
yes,
firing and
backwards.
lands on a car. It looked
And did you see
awesome.
the way he lands? He doesn't. I'm sure the idea was for him to land flat on his back on the
hmm
roof of the car to do a back bump, but the heel of one of his feet gets caught on the edge of the roof in the windshield, and his ankle like looks like I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he like broke his ankle on that, and so he like hits with like the back of his heel and then falls onto the roof. But yeah, he like does like a backwards like basically like a trust fall
Yeah,
onto this car from about I don't know, I would say like 15 feet
yeah,
maybe.
it looked like that.
And he's shooting. Dude, I mean, I'm not even like a huge action movie guy, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. And there's one more really good one. I think it might
Hmm.
be at the very end, but
Hmm.
we can't. We have to mention the fate of Goon. Basically, Tracy and Miles high kick him so many times in the head. Like they each do one good high kick, and it makes
Oh
his
yeah.
head turn around and snap. And then Tracy
Yeah.
yells at him and says, "Bird neck." I mean, I've never been
Yeah,
called that
yeah.
in my life. Is that even an insult? Like,
In Tracy's world it is. Yeah, we should point out Miles and Tracy like kill a lot of people. Like
yeah,
they're killing these goons left and right.
they do.
Just they have infinite ammo at this
And
point.
and then just like you said, Chino shows up and blows away Tracy. I mean, I thought for sure she was dead. Then Twos shoots Miles, and then
Wait, two's first tells Miles, "Look at your girlfriend. She's dead. Dead, Miles. Like you're gonna be dead."
oh man! And then we get another awesome Miles stunt. Miles while
Because twos shoots. I don't even know how Miles got on the roof again,
right,
but he
he's on the
did.
roof of the
And
warehouse thing, Bob. Yeah.
yeah, twos shoots him from the ground, hits him with every shot.
hmm
Hits him like in the chest a couple times, hits him in his leg. And yeah, and then this is I think what you were talking
Yeah.
about with the next fall.
And then Miles, he slides off the roof. loads his gun in midair and shoots twos and lands on the car. It is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, he doesn't like land on his feet or anything like that. He like lands on his back.
Right.
Maybe
right,
even
right.
face first. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really cool.
And so
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, now we're basically at the final battle between basically Chino shows up and shoves a gun in Miles' face, who's all bloody and like laying on the car that he just fell on. And then Miles says, "You're under arrest." And Chino goes, "What did I do?" And then Tracy comes back to life and says, "For the rape and murder of children." Like, it was so, I'm like, I thought she was going to be like,
and her delivery is so awkward.
"For my daughter." Like, yeah, it was the perfectly miswritten line delivered in the worst possible way, which just made it freaking hilarious.
Yeah. It's because she's grown. Now she cares about all children, not just her.
It's so weird. Yeah, and then Miles chimes in and says, "For parole violation." And then, yeah, they...
But then Chino is about to like shoot him, because like Miles can like barely move at this point, and Tracy's not doing too much better. And then the inspector, who I guess we're to believe crawled, like dragged himself. He couldn't even walk, so he like dragged himself to where they're at. Nobody noticed him. This man that's like crawling to this location. The inspector interrupts, like distracts Chino. I can't remember what he says. Do you remember?
Oh yes, he's like, "How exactly do you spell your name?"
Oh, that's right.
And then Miles and Tracy blow him away.
Yeah.
And then he says,
and then after they blow Chino away, the inspector says something like, "I wouldn't want to misspell anyone's name in my report."
Yeah. See, that's brilliant. Like, that's almost brilliant. And yeah, basically they go back to the hospital. Suzanne wakes up, and they're basically one big happy family. And the movie ends.
Suzanne is fine. Tracy's in the hospital bed. She wakes up. Miles is already, on his feet and about, and she's like, "Where's Susie?" Susie walks in. "I'm fine, mommy." And in the bed next to Tracy is the inspector.
Yeah.
And he like is still writing in his report in his pad, and he sees like everyone's reunited and happy. And he like smiles, puts his hands behind his back, and like starts laughing, and then he looks at his report and throws it in the trash.
So yeah,
he like writes one last thing in it, and then he throws it in the trash.
That's like, they bothered to give him an arc. It's so weird.
Like I can't believe I'm saying this, Steve, but honestly, there's a lot of characters here that get pretty well developed.
It's true. It's like they peppered in the arcs amidst the massive action scenes.
Yeah.
But wow, and that,
I can't believe we talked about it for this long.
Yeah.
Next time, let's not go beat by beat.
Hey, I thought we would. I don't know. We ended up settling into a rhythm, so what can you do? So should I just go ahead and run the remembered bumper?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can say why we choose to remember. I mean, we've summed it up pretty well. It's a fun action movie. It's the dialogue's stupid, delivered even more stupidly, but really good stunts and
good soundtrack.
Like the movie flies by.
Good pacing. Like, if you have people over, a couple of beers, like, you're gonna have a great time.
Yeah, invite Chino if you're having a couple of beers.
All right. Well, that is our show, and that is Parole Violators. What do you think about Parole Violators? Let us know in the comments section. Anything else to add, Yahel, before we sign off here?
No, other than, the movie is available for free on YouTube. I put a link in the chat a couple times, and Steve will add it to the show notes. Can't recommend it enough. It's one of my new favorites. So bad it's good movies for sure.
I'm glad you liked it. All right, we'll see you next Sunday as we continue to unearth even more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.
You've been enjoying Obscurity Now, a podcast that's recorded live to tape and streamed to Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe so you never miss an episode or hilarious quip. Take us with you by following the download links provided in the show notes to wherever you get podcasts. And take notice of our various social media links. If that's what you're into, I'm not here to judge. And make sure you join us live next week at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific as we continue to discuss more obscure media only on Obscurity Now.